Okay, today is Q&A. On your 200 Q&A number 1, you have Mrs. Merrill, Carla, Brennan, Ms. Brennan, County, CPS, Nancy Lee, Ms. Lee, Sierra, and Sierra School. This is your 200 Q&A number 1 for 5 minutes. Ready? What is your understanding of why we are here today?
I understand that Mrs. Merrill is suing the daycare center, and since I was Carla's teacher, I assume you are here to discuss Carla with me.
Yes. When did you have your first contact with Carla?
That would be the first day of school, which was August 28th of last year.
And when was the last contact that you had with Carla?
That would be today.
Thank you. I think you have either talked on the phone or met a woman by the last name of Brennan, who is Carla's therapist. Is that correct?
Yes, I have. That is correct.
Did you meet her through a phone call or have you met with her in person?
Both. I talked to her first on the phone, and then she came to speak to me in my classroom.
Do you recall if it was the beginning of September last year when you spoke to her on the phone about Carla?
Yes, it was.
Do you recall in that conversation that you told Ms. Brennan that if she hadn't advised you that Carla had been assaulted, you would not have been aware of it?
No, I don't recall saying that.
Could you have said something to that effect, though?
No, I don't think so.
What is your understanding today of the conversation you had with Ms. Brennan about Carla?
It was fairly brief. She wanted to set up a meeting with me because she was from the county, and it was part of her job to talk with me about Carla.
At that time, what did you think her position was with the county?
I assumed she was working for CPS.
Was there anything up until that conversation you had with Ms. Brennan that led you to believe that Carla had been molested or abused?
I had been told about Carla by a teacher at that school.
Do you recall who the teacher was that told you about Carla?
Yes, it was a teacher by the name of Nancy Lee.
And she told you that Carla had been sexually abused?
Yes.
When did she talk to you about Carla?
I believe it was right before the first week of school last year.
Do you recall what she told you about Carla?
She told me that I was going to have a little girl in my new class who had been sexually abused.
Do you know what prompted Ms. Lee to talk to you about Carla?
What prompted her was the fact that Carla would be in my class, and those things always have repercussions for children and teachers.
Can you think of anything else Ms. Lee might have told you at that time?
She never got to talk to me any further about it because she broke her arm and was out of school for many months.
The two of you spoke only about the situation that one time?
Yes.
Ms. Lee never emailed you or phoned you to follow up on the one conversation?
No.
Did you think of pursuing the conversation with Ms. Lee?
I didn't need to since the school district filled in the blanks for me.
Did any of the other teachers talk to you about Carla before the start of the school year?
A couple other people at the school mentioned it.
Do you recall who it was?
One of the women that works in the school office mentioned it to me. I can't remember who else did.
In your one conversation with Nancy Lee, did she tell you anything other than the fact that Carla had been sexually molested?
I don't believe so.
She didn't give you any of the details of the situation?
No, she did not.
How long had you been working at Sierra when you had Carla in your class?
I was new to Sierra. It was my first year teaching there.
It says in the report I have that shortly after the first day of school, the principal came to see you and discussed Carla with you. Is that correct?
Yes, she did.
Do you remember how long school had been in session when she came to see you?
It was about 2 weeks into the year.
Do you recall what the principal of Sierra told you about Carla?
She said, "You have a little girl in your class who was abused in a child care center."
Is that all you recall her saying to you about it?
Well, that was the gist of our conversation.
Has Ms. Lee returned to the school since she broke her arm?
Yes.
Have you discussed it with her since then?
By the time Miss Lee returned, I had talked to Miss Brennan, so I knew what was going on.
Do you recall how much time passed between your phone conversation with Ms. Brennan and your actual meeting with her?
I think it was approximately a week that she set up an appointment with me and came out to Sierra School.
Have you met with Ms. Brennan only the one time?
Yes.
Have you and she talked more than the one time on the phone?
No.
Have you and Ms. Brennan exchanged emails?
No.
How many times have you talked with Carla's mother about Carla?
We have talked on the phone probably 3 times.
Have you and she talked about the specifics of what happened to Carla at the daycare center?
No, we haven't.
What have you and Carla's mother talked about?
We talked about how Carla behaves in the class and how I was dealing with her behavior.
And she has never once brought up the subject of her child being sexually abused?
I have to really think about this. I'm not sure if she and I discussed it or not.
That's all right. Take your time.
No, I don't recall ever talking to Mrs. Merrill about anything other than about her daughters.
Okay, and your 200, number 2, you have Mr. Brown, Target Store, Greg, Joe Phillips, Tommy Phillips, Joe, Greg Brown, Larry Carr, Fourth Amendment, Mr. Carr, and Officer Smith. This is your 200 Q&A number 2 for 5 minutes. Ready? Mr. Brown, why did you go to Target Store on April 8?
We were going to buy some spark plugs for my brother's car.
Who was going to do that?
My brother Greg.
Did you go there to purchase anything?
No, sir.
Where did you meet the Phillips brothers?
Well, Joe Phillips was with me. Tommy was at his brother's house.
How long have you known these brothers?
I have known Joe for about 5 months. I have known Tommy about 5 months, but never hung around with him or anything. That was the first day.
Joe was the one that you knew.
Yes, sir.
Yet you heard Tommy Phillips say that April 8 was the first time he ever met you?
It was the first time he ever met my brother. Well, I knew him. He's Joe's brother.
He is, but did you know him?
Well, I knew his name. I knew who he was.
Mr. Brown, you went in to buy spark plugs. This is your story. Is that correct? The 4 of you went in with him?
Yes, sir.
That was the only thing you went in the store to buy?
Yes, sir.
Why did you split up?
We went to look at different things.
You went in for 2 reasons. 1, to buy spark plugs, and 1, to look at other things. Is that correct?
Well, I guess you could say that.
At the time you were apprehended by the store detective, where were you heading?
Into the grocery part of the store.
And out of the regular department store. Is that correct?
We weren't going anywhere when she stopped us. We were just standing there.
You were standing there?
We were standing talking.
What were your intentions?
We were going to buy some pop.
But you were out of the regular department store. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You testified, I believe, Mr. Brown, that at the time the struggle took place between Larry Carr and your brother Greg Brown, that I believe you said that Greg was heading back into the store when Larry Carr jumped on him. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Why do you suppose he would jump on him?
Maybe he thought he was going back into the store. It didn't look like he was going outside. He just turned around and started walking toward the thing.
What thing?
Toward the security office.
And as you were walking toward the security office, is that what you observed?
That is correct.
Wasn't it a fact, the purpose of the store personnel to stop you and bring you back into that security office? Isn't that what their intention was?
He offered to search.
Just answer my question.
Yes, sir.
Can you answer it?
Well, I guess it is their job to stop people and take them right to the security office.
And wasn't this made known to you? Didn't they, in fact, let you know that they wanted all of you to come back in the security office?
Just my brother.
And your brother started back into the security office, and you say that Larry Carr jumped on his back at that time?
Yes, sir.
Does that make sense to you?
Well, it makes sense to me. I think it is all ridiculous.
Is your answer no then?
Yes.
Do you recall kicking anything?
No, sir. I can't recall kicking any cans. I know what you were going to ask.
You seem to have a ready answer.
I didn't even see any cans at all that day.
Did you make any noises at all?
We were pretty mad.
Did you in fact shout, "You have the right to remain unsearched until 21"? That is the Fourth Amendment.
No, sir.
You did hear Mr. Carr testify that you did say that.
I did hear this said.
Are you familiar with the Fourth Amendment?
No, sir.
Then you didn't know what that meant.
No, sir.
You still don't.
No, sir.
Do you recall saying anything up in the front of the store?
I recall saying, let's go back to the security office.
When did you say that?
I told my brother that after Mr. Carr had jumped on him.
After?
Yes, sir.
You didn't say anything before?
I can't remember saying anything.
You might have then.
I might have.
Might you have become angry and done a little shouting?
I might have.
You in fact did, didn't you?
Well, I was pretty angry.
After you reached the security office, could you tell us where you were sitting?
I was sitting next to a desk they have in the office close to the door.
Close to the door?
Yes, sir.
You could see out the door?
Yes, sir.
How far out the door could you see?
I could see the part of the aisle where they were searching us.
You heard testimony, I believe, to the effect that Officer Smith, who searched you outside of the room, the opposite wall of the room. How could you see your brother Greg being searched?
I didn't see.
You didn't see him being searched?
No, sir.
You are certain you did not say that?
Well, I might have said it, but I didn't mean it.
Is there anything else that you said on direct testimony that you didn't mean,
Not that I can think of right now.
but you may if given some time?
I think that is all I said.
Do you recall saying anything else while you were in the security room outside of the routine identification questions?
No, sir.
You don't remember?
No, sir.
Did you see Larry Carr in the security room?
No, sir.
Never?
Never.
Did you see him outside through the door?
Yes, I could see him outside.
You did have a clear view of Larry Carr outside the door?
Not at the time I could see. Well, I looked at him and didn't say anything.
Was he looking at you? Didn't you, in fact, at this time say, "You are lucky," to Larry Carr? "You are lucky I don't know where you live. If I ever find out, I'll knock your face in"?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember saying anything else?
Well, when I was handcuffed, what can I say?
Okay, 180 Q&A number 1. Ms. Crane, Ben Sims, Ben Phillips, Plaza Shopping Center, Plaza, New Orleans, Fort Thunderbird, and Walmart. This is your 180 Q&A number 1 for 5 minutes. Ms. Crane, my name is Ben Sims. I represent Ben Phillips and his insurance company. He is alleged to be the other driver involved in this accident. Have you ever given a deposition before like this? Have you ever had lawyers ask you questions with a court reporter?
Oh, sure. Yes.
So you know the most important thing is to make sure you use verbal answers instead of nods of the head or and That assists the court reporter to take this down accurately. Also, if I ask you a question and I don't make sense or you don't understand it, then explain that and I'll attempt to rephrase it. But if I ask you a question and you answer me, I'm going to assume that you understood it. Does that sound agreeable to you?
Yes, that sounds agreeable to me.
Ms. Crane, do you remember the date of this accident? What that date was?
May 11, correct.
That was of last year?
Correct, it was.
Approximately what time of day did it happen?
It was 1 in the early evening.
Was it still light outside?
Yes, it was.
Where had you been just before this accident?
In the shopping center.
In the Plaza Shopping Center?
Yes.
Do you remember what day of the week this was?
It was a Sunday.
Did you stay at the plaza until the stores closed? Or did you depart before they closed, if you remember?
It was before they closed.
And how long had you spent there that particular day?
I can't remember.
Did you go there just for a specific reason, or did you just generally go to walk around or to shop?
Generally to shop.
Before you were at the plaza, what had you done that day, if you remember?
I think you need to be a little more specific.
Just before you went to the plaza, do you remember what you had done?
Departed my residence with my daughter and her 2 children.
Had you been at home all day, or had you done something earlier that day?
I was not home all day.
What had you done before you went home, I suppose?
I was at an acquaintance of mine's.
Do you remember what the weather was like on that day?
It was sunny. It was a beautiful day.
Where were you headed to after you left the plaza?
We were on our way home.
Does your daughter reside with you?
Correct, she does.
Were you going to take the interstate back towards New Orleans, towards downtown New Orleans?
Yes.
What kind of car were you driving that day?
I was driving a red 94 Ford Thunderbird.
How long had you had that car at that time? Maybe I'll make it easier. Did you buy that car new?
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, you have to drive underneath the interstate in order to get up on the interstate west coming from the plaza. Is that how you get on that ramp?
Exactly. That's absolutely how you get on that ramp. You questioned me had I been in the plaza. I had been in the plaza, but we had decided to go to Walmart afterwards. Consequently, that's where we were coming from.
That's over on the service road over there. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Well, tell me the path that you took from Walmart until the accident actually happened.
Okay, I left Walmart and came down the service road to the signal. When the signal changed for me to proceed, I went to the right, which is on the ramp to the interstate. I proceeded to the ramp. I stopped because traffic was coming, and I was watching to see if the signal was going to change and when it was going to change. And after the pause, I heard bam, and the car jerked, and that was the collision.
Were you actually on the ramp yielding to other traffic? Is that the point where this collision occurred?
Correct, correct.
The other traffic, was it coming from your left?
Correct.
Those cars, would they have been coming as I was describing to you earlier? If you come from the plaza, you have to come underneath the overpass and turn left. Is that where they would have been coming from?
Correct, it is.
Tell me what happened to your body inside of the car when you experienced that impact.
I felt a jolt to my body, but I grabbed the steering wheel and hit the brake extremely hard because I was afraid the car was going to move. That's as much as I can remember.
How old were the children? How old were your daughter's children at the time?
They were 6 and 8.
Tell me exactly what happened right after impact. Did you stop the car or put the automobile in park?
Correct, I did. The kids were screaming and they were very upset. I was really worried about the kids before I thought about myself. And I looked at my daughter, and I think she was concerned about the children also. She looked to the back, to the rear of the vehicle. At that point, I looked to the back, to the rear of the automobile, and the fellow was getting out of the automobile. Then I got out of the vehicle.
Okay, your 180 Q&A number 2. We have Downey Street, Mr. Rothstein, Ms. Levinsky, and Denver Place. This is 180 number 2 Q&A for 5 minutes. At that time, you must have been right alongside of the Downey Street door, weren't you?
Yes, I was right there.
And the Downey Street door was the door by which you went out every evening.
Yes, sir.
And the door by which you came every morning.
Yes.
And the door near which you worked and to which you were perfectly used to every day.
Yes.
But you didn't go out right by that door.
No, sir.
What was the name of that watchman that you heard cry fire at the time?
I don't know the name of him. I don't exactly know his name.
You worked there how many months?
What?
If you heard his name, do you think you would remember it?
No, I never heard his name either because I never had much business with him.
If you should see him, would you recognize him?
Yes.
Have you seen him at any time since the fire?
No.
Is he a large man?
Yes, sir.
Do you mean to tell the jurymen that you handed him the pocketbook? Do you say that you handed the man your pocketbook?
Yes, sir.
Isn't it a fact that as you walked by, you opened it?
I just had it open at that time.
Well, that is what you mean?
Yes.
And you didn't mean that you handed that man your pocketbook?
No.
You opened it for him to look in if he wanted to?
Yes.
And you passed right out?
Yes, sir.
So that you were right by that door?
Yes, sir.
But you didn't go to that door. You didn't go to the elevator that you use every night and every morning.
No, sir.
There was nobody in your way?
No, sir.
Nothing to stop you from going down?
Well, I heard one of the fellows saying that there is the flames there, and they were hollering. There is the fire right at the steps.
That fellow was not as near to the door as you were?
No, sir.
You don't even know who he was?
Yes, I do. I think it was Mr. Rothstein, the one that worked on the 8th floor, the fellow that gave out laces.
Rothstein had worked on the 8th floor?
Yes, he worked.
And that gave out laces?
Yes.
Was he on the 9th floor?
No, he just ran up on the 10th floor at that time.
While you were inside in the loft on the 9th floor?
Yes, sir.
Do you know Miss Levinsky?
Yes, sir.
You and she have seen each other since the fire
Yes.
and have had quite a number of talks?
Yes, sir.
And you and she gave out interviews to the newspapers after the fire, didn't you? That is the little girl that testified here yesterday?
I wasn't here yesterday.
Oh, you were not downtown yesterday?
No,
Where have you seen Miss Levinsky?
I haven't seen Miss Levinsky yesterday.
When did you last see her?
Last week, upstairs on the 9th floor, on the 4th floor.
In this building?
Yes, sir.
When did you see her before then?
I didn't see her before then.
At no time?
No time.
Did you see her the day of the fire?
No, I didn't see her the day of the fire, but in the morning I did see her, before the fire.
Did you see her on the 9th floor at the time of the fire?
No, sir.
Was she in the loft at the time of the fire?
Yes.
Do you know if you didn't see her?
I heard all the girls say she was there.
When?
When we got down.
Was she downstairs when you got down?
I don't remember seeing her down there, but some of the girls seen her go home at that time.
Was there anybody between you and that Downey Street door at the time when you showed the watchman your pocketbook?
There was no one but me and the watchman.
And you could see the door plainly?
Yes, I seen the door plainly there.
And you were about 5 feet away from the stairs?
Yes, sir.
But you turned around and followed a crowd of girls
Yes, sir.
over to the Denver Place elevators doors?
Yes.
Then you must have been the last girl that started for the Denver Place elevator doors?
No, I was not the last girl, because not all the girls knew there was a door there, because that door was always closed up.
You know that the other girls didn't know there was any door there, and you and Miss Levinsky both knew that, didn't you?
I don't know whether she knew it or not. I know it.
You know she knew yesterday afternoon that the other girls didn't know there was a door there, and you know it this morning?
I knew it before that.
Do you want to add anything to that?
I knew that when I worked there the 5th month, because my cousin works there the 4th year, and she always told me.
Your cousin always told you that she didn't know there was a Denver Place door?
Yes, she told me there was a door there. That is how I know it. Otherwise, I would never know it.
Your cousin told you there was a Denver Place door?
Yes, sir.
When did your cousin